name's Dominic Miller, and you're listening to In Love with Jazz with Roger Chung.
The cards as a meditation, and those he plays never suspect. He doesn't play for the money he wins. He don't play for respect. He deals the cards to find the answer, the sacred geometry of chance, the hidden law of a probable outcome. The numbers lead a dance. I know that the spades are the swords of a soldier. I know that the clubs are weapons of war. I know that diamonds mean money for this art, but that's not the shape of my heart. He may play the jack of diamonds, he may lay the queen of spades, he may conceal a king in his hand while the memory of it fades. I know that the spades are the swords of a soldier. I know that the clubs are weapons of war. I know that diamonds mean money for this art, but that's not the shape of my heart. That's not the shape. I told you that I loved you, it made me think there's something wrong. I'm not a man of too many faces. The mask I wear is one. I know that the spades are the swords of a soldier. I know that the clubs are weapons of war. I know that diamonds mean money for this art, but that's not the shape of my heart. That's not the shape of my heart. That's not the shape of my heart.
Wow, I'm here with the Dominic Miller, the shape of my heart, jazz, classical crossover, the legendary session guitarist, Dominic Miller. Welcome.
Hey, it's nice to be here.
How many times have you been to Hong Kong?
I've been to Hong Kong over the last 30 or 30 years, probably 3 or 4 times. Yeah, the last time I was there is quite a few years ago, actually. But I don't go there enough.
Uh-huh. And you're coming.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I am indeed.
Yeah, so actually you're coming in April. We are going to have the Jazz Marathon, of course, and you're going to be the finale of the marathon. So
Oh, really?
yeah, I believe so. And you know, this is fantastic, and we're definitely looking forward to having you here with us in Hong Kong. So, you know, the first tune that we listened to before we started the interview, of course, is you know, a smash hit, a classic that is written by you and Sting. Can you tell us a little bit about that tune? You know, how did you come about with the, you know, with the guitar riffs and chord arrangements? How did it happen? You know, it's just,
well, actually, it's
nice.
like a lot of things. It was just kind of an accident, really, because those chords, that guitar motif, I actually kind of came up with it as a sort of an exercise for myself, just to warm up, because I was messing around with the idea of piano chords and using sixth chords, you know, kind of like Chopin type of chords, but on the guitar, because they're not really conventional guitar chords. They're more like pianistic with the wide intervals. So I just came up with a sort of a sequence of chords in my own order, and the only difference was that I added a sort of a folky rhythm to it. And so it was a fun exercise. And all that happened is while we were recording the 10 Summoner's Tales album with Sting, I happened to be by his fireplace during a break, and I was just playing this tune to myself, and the dog, I think, was around, and Sting said, he just said, "What is this riff you're playing?" And I told him it's nothing in particular, it's just like a warm-up exercise. And he said, "I think this should be a song." And I thought, well, sure, of course, I mean, why not? And so the next thing we did is we went back into the studio after the break, and we fired up the drum machine, and we had a sampled cello sound. I played the riff, and we had what was the makings of what was a really good song, which we sort of turned into an arrangement with a key change, because Sting loves to mess around with keys and all that kind of thing. So we kind of worked it and came up with a 4-minute idea. And then he went off in the garden for a walk, which is what he does. That's how he gets his lyrical inspiration. And he came back with a lyric and a concept. He recorded the vocals, and it was done in a day. It's amazing because I think it really, what it shows is it's a really good example of what a good collaboration is between two musicians. It's, you know, one person coming up with an idea and another person, first of all, recognizing it as a song and coming up with a lyric. And so it was the perfect, you know, we've spent probably months working on other tunes that we think are perfect, but they don't have the same kind of magic that tune has. And there's no way to explain or quantify why something grabs people's imagination, but I suppose that one did.
I suppose, like music, I mean, to me, I always feel that it is a spontaneous art. And I think this is, you know, a very good example of, you know, what does it mean by that? Sometimes...
Yeah, that's exactly right. Spontaneous art. Oh, I like that description.
Oh, thank you. And, well, I think we have plenty of time to talk about Sting, but I'm just really curious, are you going to bring your ECM band over to Hong Kong?
Absolutely, yeah. I've got, like, as you can imagine, I've got a very, very good phone book. And it's, you know, I know how to use it. And I've got some great musicians who are also some of my best friends. You know, Ziv Rabitz. He's done many records. He's done many albums on ECM with especially with Avishai Cohen and different people. He's a great, great drummer. He's a real painter of the drums.
Oh yeah.
Much the same way that Manu Katché is too. I'm bringing Jason Rebello.
Okay.
He's playing piano. Who actually the last time I came to Hong Kong, he was playing piano with me as well. So he's been on tour with me before, and I toured with him in the Sting band. Unfortunately, Jacob Carlson, who's the pianist on the last album, is not doing this particular segment of the tour. For musicians are always busy. It's very difficult to get everyone in the same room.
Sure.
So, but Jason Rebello is one of the greatest jazz pianists in Britain, if not the greatest. And Nicholas Fishman is my regular bass player who I've been playing with for decades, who's a fantastic player. And the great thing about him is that he comes also from the world of pop and rock. And I like, especially in an ECM type of project, I like to have someone who comes from that type of culture, which is a lot more to do with tightness and that type of pop and rock execution, which is very, very precise and actually very disciplined. People have no idea how disciplined rock and pop music is, but it really is. And Nicholas Fishman is the bass player who brings that to the table, a really precise and well executed style of playing the bass, which gives me the freedom. So with the painter on the drums and the pop guy on the bass and the genius on the piano, I don't really have to do very much. It's like I really enjoy the journey. It's like I'm in a very sophisticated vehicle where I can kind of really have fun with it and guide the musicians in different areas, because we do improvise a lot. Yeah. So I like to keep in the tradition and culture of ECM music, which is a lot of it is to do with improvisation. So we have themes, but we really mess around with those themes and navigate our way around them. So a great lineup.
I think one thing that really struck me when I listen to your ECM records is that I can just feel that, Dominic Miller is really having a ball, just like really enjoying all the moments, and I sometimes I even feel like you're not even trying to make any statement. You're just enjoying, those magical moments. I'm not sure if I'm getting this right.
It's absolutely that. You've described it perfectly, because that's what it is. But that has a lot to do with who you pick to do the journey with you. Because making music or making an album is almost like creating a play. And I have different scenes in the play. Yeah. And I want to choose actors who can adapt to different scenarios. But the narrative or the story kind of comes from me, because I know what the narrative is. I know what the plot is. And so I don't really need to do very much. And it gives me a lot of freedom to really kind of express the melody very purely. And one of the things that I learned from Sting actually is if you surround yourself with great musicians, you end up looking great.
Oh yes.
And it's a really good tip to all musicians. Get people who are really good players around you, and then you become a better player.
Wow, that's profound, I would say. And I think music a lot of times is a collaborative art too, right? Spontaneous,
absolutely.
Also collaborative. So I think we should listen to one of your tunes from your ECM records. Clarence Chang has actually chosen this for me. So I'm not sure if you guys have actually communicated, but he said, please play Cruel But Fair. Can you tell us a little about this tune?
Yeah, Cruel But Fair was actually written during the pandemic. And it's difficult to explain titles. It's kind of pretentious coming up with titles, I think, because in classical music, people they used to name the music by the speed, andante, adagio, saraband, or presto, or by the catalog, number 23 or number 24, but if I were to name my music by the speed, that would sound somewhat pretentious. But by the same token, coming up with these silly titles is pretentious as well. So I'm kind of stuck. But usually with the title, it's the first thing that I think of. And Cruel But Fair was just a comment that the tour manager our tour manager with Sting, used to say when things used to go wrong on tour. And he passed away a few years ago. So as soon as I heard of his passing, I wrote this piece of music. So it's cruel but fair was what he used to say, but it's also cruel but fair that he passed away. And usually when I write music, I name it by the thing that I was thinking of at that time. And so Cruel But Fair is really a slow piece written during the pandemic. And the last album, it's the first time I actually wrote an album where I was actually on my own. I didn't see any of my friends or my musicians. I was just with my family and my dogs. And I love my family and my dogs, but I didn't see anyone other than them. Yeah. And so it's kind of you could be forgiven for thinking it's a kind of introspective type of album, but maybe it is, because it's very, very deep to me. Yeah. It's very personal, this music. So this melody just came to me just like that, kind of like Shape of My Heart, except this was more composed than Shape of My Heart was more of an exercise that turned into a song. But this was, I was on my own, and I came up with this simple melody, and then I came up with some chords. And then when I made the album, I presented this simple idea to my band, and I told them the story that I just told you about Mr. Francis, who passed away, and they were inspired by that. And then really, we just roll tape, because they're such good musicians, they understand what to do. So we did one rehearsal and 2 takes. Mm-hmm. Wow. And I think the first take is the one that you hear on that record. And that's a beautiful thing. And Jacob Carlson's piano playing on that is just stunning, I think. He really, really captured the moment beautifully. And of course, the drumming is perfect, and so is the bass playing. And once again, I didn't have to do very much. I'm just playing the melody very, very simply. And the interesting thing is that on the during the piano break, there's a piano break towards the end. Yeah, I was so inspired by what he was doing that I just stopped playing. And that's the beauty of having a band like that, is that you can sometimes just stop and let them do their thing. Not everybody has to be speaking at the same time. And it's quite difficult to do that, actually, to actually know when to abstain. Yeah. It takes a lot of experience to be able to do that.
Experience and understanding of the art. I would almost say that I would call it a monkish moment. Like Thelonious Monk would just stop playing and just listen to John Coltrane or Sonny Rollins just blowing their lungs out with the saxophone. It's kind of moment. I know what you're saying. Why don't we listen to this tune, and then when we come back, we'll talk more. cruel but fair. You know, when I first I just heard the story, and you were talking about, you know, you writing this during the pandemic, and the first thing that came to my mind was that probably, you know, those social distancing policies that we have to endure is cruel but kind of fair at the same time, because that's what we need to do. But it doesn't mean that, you know, it's not cruel. It's still cruel.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
So I gotta continue with this ECM thing, because I find it extremely intriguing that you joined ECM. You know, when I first started, you know, we listened to you, of course, you know, with the Sting albums, but when you came up with your own solo albums, you know, like this one that I have right here, Shapes, it was with Decca. And I was thinking, yeah, you know, you're playing all those classical stuff, you know, you arrange all those stuff. So it is extremely appropriate, right, for you to join Decca. But then when you joined ECM, I was like, whoa, you know, because, you know, to me, I see Dominic Miller as someone who can play pop and rock. And, you know, you have your classical roots, but a little bit less so on the jazz side. Although sometimes, you know, I do hear some jazz influence here and there. So what made you, you know, make the decision to join ECM at the first step?
Well, actually, this is another case of an accident almost, you know, because I didn't expect this. We didn't go to them, and I remember I just finished a long tour with Sting, like I'm usually on tour with him, and I took a vacation in Saint-Tropez, and I told my manager, as I always do, when I'm on vacation, don't call me, but I've got 2 weeks off, unless it's really, really important. So let's not be in contact. We're very disciplined that way. We don't need any kind of day-to-day housework stuff to do with, you know, in the music business. So I just always shut myself off. So I'm sitting there in Saint-Tropez with my wife and kids in the sun, reading my book, and my phone goes, and I'm thinking, who would dare call me up? And Stefan, it's my manager, he said, well, hey Dom, Manfred Eicher called. And I'm going, what? Manfred Eicher, what? Manfred Eicher from ECM? And he said, yeah, and he wants to meet you. And I thought, first of all, why? Why does he want to meet me? What's this about? Does he want me to play on a record, or what is it? No, he wants to meet you about doing a record. And I thought, this is crazy. It's like, why would he want me? Like, as you just said, because I come from more the pop and the rock and more the popular music kind of scene. I'm not really a jazzer. And so obviously I was intrigued by this request, because I'm probably like yourself, I'm an ECM fan. I grew up listening to Egberto Gismonte, Keith Jarrett, Jan Garbarek, you know, John Abercrombie, Ralph Town, all this stuff. I grew up listening to that stuff. I've got these records. They're scratched. You know, I've been listening to them all my life, you know, since I was a teenager. And so obviously, and Pat Metheny, I was intrigued by this request. So I go to Munich, and I meet Manfred. I meet him in his office, and he says, look, I want to make a record with you, because I know your music, I've heard your music, and would you be interested in doing something with us? And I thought, first of all, why would you ask me? But then he said, because I think that you fit with our aesthetic, our sound. And of course, I was totally blown away by this request. So then he gave me some time. We set a date to make a record. He gave me some time to compose. So I came up with the Silent Light album. And, you know...
First album with ECM.
Yeah, and so I went in the studio. He hadn't heard anything. I showed up, and we recorded that album in 2 days. And that's the way ECM do things. They have a very particular style of recording music.
Right.
I don't think anyone else does it that way, because what they like to do is capture the moment with mistakes and everything. So it's not the kind of record company where you would go in and make something that you think is perfect. What you're doing is you're creating something that the producer, it has a vision of what you can do. It's almost like making a movie with someone like, Polanski or Hitchcock or Woody Allen, like a genius movie maker who has a philosophy.
Yeah.
And their philosophy is to put the actor in a kind of position of, I don't know, it's probably a combination of insecurity and arrogance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how it feels as a musician to be in that situation. It's like, on one side, I feel completely useless. It's like, what am I doing here? And on the other hand, I feel somewhat empowered because I've been put in this situation. So it gives me the will to do something. So I think it's the perfect label for me. And we've developed quite a strong relationship after 3 albums. And I'm actually preparing a 4th one.
Oh, wow.
So it's, I'm so happy that I've made that shift to that label. Yeah. And I think it's the perfect place for the kind of thing that I want to do. And I don't think of myself as an ECM type of artist, but if I stand back from it from a distance, I suppose it sort of does feel like ECM. And now I understand that all the artists on that label are probably the same. They don't think of themselves as typical ECM music. And also, I don't really think of it as jazz. What it is it's instrumental music that has a lot of improvisation to it. Because Manfred Eicher, the label doesn't like you to come totally prepared with your script. What he wants you to do is come and be yourself, create. But I come with a narrative, I come with a story, I come with like a play, to use that analogy.
Okay.
And so I have these different scenes, and he, as a great producer, we call him the fifth Beatle. He kind of guides us towards the type of performance that will fit the record.
Right. So it's kind of like, I think their philosophy is sort of like striking a tension and balance between vulnerability and empowerment.
Absolutely. That's really, I wish I put it that way. You just explained it in 30 seconds, not even what I'm trying to explain in 5 minutes. And that's it, really. That's exactly it.
Right. And did he tell you, which was the album that really, kind of strike him that you are an ECM guy?
Well, I think what it was mostly was because I'm also a writer. I've written quite a lot of tunes. I had made a lot of albums before. Sure. And some of his artists were picking up on my tunes and recording them. So I think he wanted to know, who is this composer, this guitar writer?
Right.
And so I can't remember which artist. There's a few different artists who were recording my music.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's one girl who recorded a tune called Eclipse. And so I think that's how I showed up on his radar, because it's not the kind of label where you send them stuff and they react. It doesn't work like that. It's the type of label where they come to you as opposed to you going to them.
All right.
So you're kind of headhunted by them. And it's been like that with all the artists on the label. I'm pretty sure it's been that way for everybody.
Yeah. Let me just ask you one more question before we listen to the next tune. Do you sort of adjust your music or style according to which label you're going to record with? Like, for example, you recorded with, I think it was Q Raya's music.
Yeah. You
change it to ECM. I mean, do you sort of try to fit in with that culture, or not really? That's a really good question. I'm really glad you brought that up, because the answer to that is no. It's because if I were to do that, I wouldn't really be doing what the label wants from me. Because when a label wants something from you, they want you to be yourself. They don't want you to be like them. Yeah.
And so the answer is no, because when I worked did the Decca album, it's like, who am I to try and sound like Decca, with the history of such a great label? And also the same with ECM. It would be pretentious of me to try and sound like Ralph Towner or Pat Metheny, but of course I'm influenced by all these people.
Yeah.
So yeah, in a way I do sound like them because they're part of my DNA as a musician, as a writer.
Yeah.
That's, like I look behind you at all those CDs, and it's interesting because the only thing there's nothing original about any of us, but there's only one thing that you can say is 100% original about you and about me, and that is my record collection. That's my fingerprint. That's my DNA. I can guarantee you that nobody's got the same collection that you do. It's impossible.
Right.
And it's impossible for my collection as well. I guarantee that it would just be a total improbability.
Yeah.
So,
true.
Of course, the ECM culture comes into my music, and so does the Decca, and so does the Blue Note, and so does the all these labels.
Yeah.
Motown.
Yeah.
As well.
Wow. That you put it very well. Let's listen to one song, okay? So this one is from your album Absinthe. It's also 2019, right? ECM.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this tune, and then we'll listen to it.
Well, Absinthe started off as a solo guitar piece, because I wanted to write something. I was trying to imagine myself doing a solo recital. What would I play? Because I always admire guitarists who can just go in front of an audience and just on their own play music. And I've always been fascinated by what Segovia, the famous guitar player, he always said, a guitar is like a small orchestra. And I love that, because so as a writer and musician, then you become the conductor.
Yeah. And
a guitar is such a versatile instrument where you can say so much, like a piano is. But the difference between a guitar and a piano is that a guitar you can play anywhere from a beach to a concert hall. You know what I mean? A piano is quite heavy. You can't carry it on the back of your bicycle. A guitar you can carry anywhere and tell stories anywhere. And this is why I love the guitar as an instrument, and also the register of it, kind of like a cello would be the closest to a guitar, is the actual registry of it. And the fact that it's polyphonic, I can play chords, I can play melodies, I can play rhythms, I can play bass lines. So Absinthe started like that. I wanted to write a piece that was solo. And I can't really describe what the music means to me. It's just, it has a very Spanish type of chords. I love Spanish chords, that sort of harmony. Like Asturias, those kind of, it's like classical guitar. And so I remember when I was preparing for this album and getting ready for it, I thought of it as a solo piece. I played it to the guys, but then everyone kind of reacted to it. And as soon as I heard them play, I thought, okay, we got to do it like this. And Manu Katché was playing drums on that. And he laid down this groove that was so devastating and powerful that it completely changed my opinion of what the piece was. It suddenly became more of a sort of funk rock type of tune. I mean, it went through Round the Houses, and Manfred was freaking out. He was like, what are you guys doing? But he loved it. He was smiling. He was jumping up and down. And because that is a good example of something that really doesn't sound like ECM at all. And yet, from a distance, it kind of is. Because I had Santiago Arias, who was playing bandoneon, and he just ripped it apart. He crushed it, as we say now, and he was improvising, and he gave it that really kind of edge, that's Buenos Aires type of tango edge. And Nicolas, the pop bass player, and I thought, I've got a good thing going here. But it's the way it ended up has got no bearing on the way it was originally written, but yet I'm playing exactly the same form and the same chords. And
I think because this tune is called Absinthe, probably you came up with it as an afterthought. I that's my guess, and probably they're just thinking, I don't want you to drink this alcohol on your own. We want.
Yeah,
We're
no, it's very
too
dangerous.
lonely.
Don't do this at home.
All right, so here you go. Absent. Dominic Miller. That was absolutely fantastic. Absinthe. I hope that my audience is actually, sipping some wine or something when they're listening to this tune.
Yeah.
You were talking about guitar, and I think I've heard another interview, I think that you did with Rick Beato, that you were saying that you don't really consider yourself a guitar guy. You said something like this. I'm just paraphrasing. I mean, how does that work? I mean, because we all see you as a guitar guy, and absolutely fantastic with the instrument. So tell us what you're thinking about.
Well, it's totally genuine. I'm not like a shredder. I haven't been in my room practicing all my life. I'm more kind of into the big picture myself. I've always been more interested in music more than guitar and how music is constructed. Being a guitarist is part of that process. And so, of course, I have to be good enough to be a member of this vision that I have as a musician. So I'm not like I haven't played for hours and hours and hours every day. But although when I was between the ages of 14 and 24, that was probably when I did all my practicing.
Okay.
I never stopped practicing. But I didn't continue practicing. It's really when I was 24, I really started working all the time. But I didn't have a practice regime and become like obsessed with it. There's so many guitar players who I absolutely admire and I'm envious of as well, probably. But not really that much, because we're all in the same family, really. We take ideas from each other, but I really don't consider myself a serious guitar player. But what I've focused on most of my life is tone, is sound.
Yeah.
So if I have been obsessed about anything on the guitar, it's the sound of it, it's the purity of striking it out. It's kind of almost like yoga. Or it's like, what is the purity of the note? If I listen to koto music from Korea or something like that, I've heard some music where I can listen to an album of koto, where a guy will be playing single notes for an hour. And not fast, because it's not a kind of shredding type of music, but that inspires me. Because they focus all their attention on the purity of the sound. It's the sound production. So that's my obsession. And of course, sometimes I play passages that might be a bit challenging, so I have to practice. Okay, we've got to get this together. So the only way to practice something is use the same principle, is to do it slowly. If you practice something slowly, you'll get there quicker. Really. And I would encourage all musicians, whatever you're playing, play it at half speed every day. Or whatever you're practicing, try it at half the speed. It's much, much more difficult, but it's much better for you than just playing fast all the time. Because if you can't play it slowly, it means that when you're playing fast, you're not really in control.
Yeah. I mean, I think what struck me when I listen to your music is that it is quite obvious, I mean, at least to me, that this guy, this guitarist really have an appreciation of beauty in life, and that's what I feel when I was listening to your music. It's not really that much in the head all the time. It's more in the soul, and it almost feels like when you are doing the more difficult stuff, it is more in the service of that end, which is the beauty. Rather,
I'm glad you look at it that way. I mean, I'd like to agree, but it's true that sometimes when you're doing more complex type of passages, you have to kind of practice for it. But then you have to, what is the music asking for?
Yeah,
this is the real judge and the real arbiter is the music itself. That's the boss. Yeah. So if the music is asking for something very skillful and very fast, well, then I got to get ready for it.
Yeah.
And if I can't rise to that level, then I'll have to find a different way. but I'm not really I don't actually hear things that way. I wish I could. Like, there's so many fantastic guitar players. I wish I had their ability, but sadly I don't. But if I did have their ability, it might interfere with the composing process, because I might just compose a lot of very, very complex stuff, which I don't really like.
Wow. I mean, such humility from a guitar giant like you. I think we can all learn from this, seriously. Do you think this philosophy that of the approach to music, your approach to music, really was influenced by your times when you were a studio session player, when you started, with your career?
Absolutely, yeah. Because that's really how I started my career, was in recording studios, kind of by accident. I didn't mean to become a session player, but it just happened because I kind of developed a reputation in London for being the type of guitar player who could, like an actor, who could play many different roles. So a producer likes people like me who can just show up, and if he says, oh yeah, can you play some funk here, or play some country there, or some bossa nova there, or just do some classical. So none of what I do is totally authentic, but I can play the role. So I learned a lot by working with so many incredible artists. One of the advantages of being a session player is that I work with people who are incredibly talented, particularly songwriters. Yeah. So I learned more about songwriting and production, and like, what is a good songwriter? Phil Collins, Prissy Hines, Sting, Bryan Adams, all these people. Like, why are they so great? I sort of learned that by playing with them. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, by being involved in their creative process, that was such a gift. And it's made me so much richer as a musician to have had that experience. And of course, learning what I've learned from them and why they are so great, and the way that they navigate their way around a piece of music. Of course, it's had an influence on me as a musician and as a guitar player, as to what is, as we said earlier, what is the song asking for? Yeah, that's what I need to do. That's what I need to service. It's not what's going to make me look great. It's what's going to make the song look great. And the end result is you look great if you do something that makes the song look good, and then you get called back. So I have even more and more experiences, like I still do. But, let's face it, the session scene has kind of died down since the record industry sort of died. But that's okay. I feel very fortunate to have had that experience for about 20 years throughout the 90s and the millennial years, where I was in and out of studios for 20 years, having incredible experiences. And it's had an effect on me as a musician, for sure.
Wow. So, you talked about this is all an accident. So what did you dream of becoming at first?
Well, my dream when I was growing up was to be someone like Baden Powell, a Brazilian guitar player. Okay. To me, he was like Hendrix.
Okay.
But also Hendrix, I love Hendrix too. I just thought there's something about a guitar player, but then singer-songwriters like Neil Young. And, I love the idea of someone traveling with a guitar, telling stories, either by playing classical music or by playing instrumental music, playing bossa nova. To me, this was the absolute goal in life, was to travel and to play music and to tell stories. So I'm influenced by songwriters because I totally believe in the storytelling process. And I hear a story in instrumental music, like most people do. Yeah. People who love classical music would agree with me. If you hear Chopin or you hear Ravel, does it tell you a story? Of course it does. As much as lyrics do. So, I like to bring all those songwriter chops into instrumental music. And so I'm living my dream. I'm so fortunate. And at the same time, I'm still collaborating with Sting up for 34 years now. And I've got the best of both worlds, because I get to hang out with one of the greatest songwriters in modern songwriting history. and a rock star. So I get to have that experience as well. And I learned so much from doing that. You wouldn't believe it. He's my mentor in terms of arrangement, using space. And there's so many, I could go on. We could have another interview about what I think about that. But really, I'm very lucky to be doing what I love to do. And it's like, it's an ongoing process. I haven't got there yet. I don't feel like I've made it, because I feel like I got on a train when I was very young. I was offered a one-way ticket. But the good thing is that it's a beautiful place that I'm going. The downside is that there is no destination, really, and I'm never going to make it. I'm never going to get there. But you want to go on this journey? And I said yes to my gods or my inspiration. So it's an amazing journey being a musician, but you don't really ever make it. And if you do make it, if you think you've made it, that's probably a red flag. You should be concerned about that, because then if you start thinking that you've got this, that's when you might start getting complacent. And you've really got to keep improving. That's what I love about the great jazz masters, like Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea, God bless him, and Wayne Shorter. The real gurus are the ones who were, and Jeff Beck, John McLaughlin, who took their music on the upward trajectory constantly. So Chick Corea left us at the height of his abilities.
Yeah, I would totally.
That's what I want. That's all I want. I don't want to make it and then just chill.
Remember, I totally agree with you. And I remember I was being interviewed in another occasion. I was in the one interviewing people, and someone asked me about being a professor, a scientist at the same time, and also doing music on the side. How do you balance that? And I told him this quote from Bill Evans. He called up Tony Bennett just like weeks before he passed away, right? And he said to Tony, that's the only thing that he said, and then he hung up. He said, "Hey Tony, the most important thing in life is truth and beauty. That's it."
I love that. Wow, that's so inspiring.
Yeah, and I was thinking to myself, yes, truth and beauty is never a state. They are always changing. So you always have to pursue the truth. Pursue beauty. There's never a stagnant, a stale state. So I think it kind of resonates with what you're talking about. You
have to earn it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to be, help guide everything towards that light. It's like, I totally agree with you, and or with him, and I think it's a beautiful quote that, and I'm gonna use that, and I'll make a note of that. That's a good takeaway from this interview for me. To remember that.
Wow, and I got a lot of great takeaways from the great Dominic Miller. Are we going to listen to any of your solo stuff during the concert when you're in Hong Kong?
Oh, absolutely. But in the spirit of jazz, I'm not coming with a completely scripted plan, because I like to think of it like a dinner date. If I'm going to go on a blind date with a great opportunity, who am I to come with my lines prepared? I don't think my opposite would be too impressed if I come all confident and prepared. It's like, yeah, we're going to get this. I think it's important to find my way to a good result. Yeah. And the good result is making a good connection. Truth and beauty. That's what I want between the audience and me. Who am I to come prepared with my outcome?
Because
of course, I've got a lot of choices. As a band, what I tell the band is I have a menu I work from, which is like 40 or 50 tunes.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on how I feel with the connection is with the audience, I will start playing any of these tunes and they should know what I'm doing.
Right.
I expect them to. And they're good enough musicians to know what I'm going to do. So I navigate my show that way. And, you know, sometimes it's quite difficult for promoters because they want my set list before the show. And I go, well, I'd really love to give you a set list, but I don't think it's, you know, I can do that because I don't know what I'm going to play yet.
Yeah.
You can't ask jazz musicians what they're going to play. And if they do come prepared, it's not really a jazz gig, you know?
Exactly.
So let us improvise, but you know, I can assure you that I will come with a few tunes that everybody knows. You know, I can't do a show without playing "Shape of My Heart." I will do some. I will do some shows that are some Sting songs, of course. You know, because that's part of my career and it's part of my story is being in that lineup for 34 years. So that is my story as a musician, so it has to come through. I will play some Bach music, but just because I love Bach.
I love,
you know, and I'll probably play it badly, but I'm still going to play it because the great thing about Bach is that you don't have to play it perfectly. It's the music that's talking. You know, one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard is listening to my next door neighbor, who's probably an 8-year-old girl, practicing Bach badly.
But you see,
you won't hear anything more pure and beautiful than that, because
Wow.
all she's doing is she's it's like a prayer, and there might be stumbles and mistakes, but she's going towards the light.
Yeah.
And it's sublime music.
Yeah.
So it's not about your interpretation. Nobody cares about your interpretation of Bach. That's why I like Glenn Gould so much, because I like the way he plays it. It's very monotone. It's kind of flat almost. He's playing it with not so much dynamic. You don't need to put your dynamics into it too much. Just play the notes, mate. It'll all be cool. It's like Shakespeare's like that, you know? So I'm going to have some fun on my show. We're going to play a bunch of stuff ranging from all the different albums that I've done. We're going to jam. I want my guys to improvise and have a good time. And I want to make a good connection with the audience, you know, kind of feel my way through that experience.
I hope that you're going to play or interject Whiter Shade of Pale into Air on G String.
Well, actually, you've well spotted, because it's the same tune, kind of. It's a, you know, it's a descending bass line.
Yeah, I love that descending bass line. I write some of my songs with that too.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that. And I love that tune. And
yeah,
Whiter Shade of Pale is great. I'll try and do that. If you're there, I'll do it.
All right. I really look forward to seeing you. I hope that I can really see you in person. This is really, truly a great honor for me to have you on my show. So, thank you very much for coming in here.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. Cheers.
Yeah. See you in Hong Kong.
See you later, mate.